Hi everyone! So today we're going to be taking a look at the Monstera deliciosa, also known as the Swiss cheese plant. This is a plant native to southern Mexico. So keep that in mind as we go through the care tips here, and note that whenever you're taking care of a houseplant, you want to account for the native environment of the plant so you can adequately assess things like light, humidity, water, so on and so forth. So we'll get down to some basics here about this plant. Super prolific grower, awesome foliage, awesome leaves, definitely known for that split leaf look, and it gets huge. As you can see, it's actually a vining plant. As for light requirements for your Monstera deliciosa, I would absolutely recommend that you give your Monstera bright and direct light. It could handle a slight amount of bright direct light, although I would be cautious of that because you are likely to scorch the foliage. So you're probably going to notice that your Monstera will do best in a south-facing window, very close to the window, as long as it doesn't get a lot of direct light or anything like that. And it will actually stretch out towards the light, and the leaves will turn along their stem to face the light and absorb the most amount of light they can get. So while we're talking about light as well, it's important to note that large amount of foliage is going to really benefit from an occasional cleaning. I do use neem oil on my Monstera. That's a good prophylactic treatment as well as a treatment for pests. However, you could definitely just put your Monstera in the shower or in the sink, depending on the size of it, and just give it a quick hose down. That will take off any residual dust or dirt or anything like that on the leaves that is really preventing light from hitting those leaves and allowing for maximum photosynthesis. And you're going to notice as well, something interesting about the Monstera is that more immature leaves are not going to have that split leaf, those fenestrations or those openings in the leaves. So we can actually see this is one of the most young leaves on this plant. This is the closest to the base of the plant. You can see it actually only has one fenestration there. So and then the next leaf is this guy here. So you can kind of see the progression, as I think it only had this leaf whenever I first bought it a year ago, and you can see the progression. So as your Monstera grows up, I'm not sure how well you can see this, but you can see that there's actually fenestrations in the center of this leaf versus just the outside. So as Monsteras get older and as they mature, depending on if they are adequately cared for, you're going to start to see a lot of more fenestrations happening. So if you go to like a botanical garden and you see a Monstera and it looks very lacy and has a ton of fenestrations in it, chances are it's very happy and it's a very old Monstera as well. So if you see a Monstera at your local greenhouse or something and it only has, you know, an immature leaf like this with only one fenestration on it or hardly any fenestrations, don't be alarmed. The fenestrations are going to happen with time and with adequate care. Watering these plants is relatively straightforward. Monsteras, because they are more of a subtropical plant, they would benefit from keeping the soil a little bit on the moisture side. I would not keep your soil wet by any means because you don't want to expose your plant to any root rot, and you want to allow the soil to dry out a little bit so those roots can get the amount of oxygen that they need to survive. Really, with any house plant, a really well-draining mix is going to be nice. That just, you know, prevents excess water buildup or anything like that. At the same time, you don't want something that's going to just run water right through. You want to kind of find a happy medium. So whenever you water it, allow like 30 to 20% of that water to come out of the bottom, and that's how you'll know that you have proper drainage. Monsteras, because they like to stay on the moisture side, could be planted in like a ceramic or even a plastic pot. I had mine actually only planted in terracotta, but because they do stay moisture, that wouldn't really be an issue if you use plastic or something like that. Terracotta is just nice because it helps wick up the excess moisture, especially in succulent type plants that don't like a lot of moisture around the roots. I use a General 20-20-20 all-purpose fertilizer on my Monstera during the growing season. Maybe once every 2 weeks I dilute it to quarter to half a strength, and it seems to do really well. As long as you're giving this guy good light and not overwatering it, it will be happy. Also on the note of watering. So this leaf down here actually is one of the great leaves that tell me whenever this plant needs watered. Whenever you have a Monstera, you're going to notice that the leaves will start to curl in on themselves, and that will be an indication of dehydration. And that will be your sign that you need to water your plant sometime very soon. So I always know whenever this leaf starts to droop a little bit lower, and once these leaves start to kind of curl in on themselves, that I need to water this plant soon because it's starting to get dehydrated. So that's another nice thing about the Monstera, is that it does have obvious signs of dehydration, so you can just quickly glance at it and know whether or not you're going to need to water it versus really getting down and dirty and checking the soil and things like that. Again, that's just kind of a language and a rapport that you're going to build with your plant after you have it and you learn its language. Another interesting thing about the Monstera is the aerial roots that form. So these are roots that come out of the node where new leaves form. And in nature, they're actually just like running roots that will find water or ground soil or anything like that to either A, help establish the plant so it is stronger and rooted in other places, or it will search for water or other nutrients or things like that to bring back to the plant. So you can do a few different things with these aerial roots. It's not necessary that you keep them on your plant. You can definitely just cut the aerial roots off and the plant won't mind it. You can also just leave the aerial roots hang out. They will get super, super long and you can let them trail down onto the floor. I've seen other people trail them down off their plant into a separate planter and just have it like an aesthetic thing. There's a lot of different things that you can do. I chose to do a little experiment here and put my aerial roots into the soil, and I'll show you a clip of that here. I've never done this before, but from what I understand, this will just help establish the plant and make it stronger, and it will kind of take away the requirement for this trellis, given that these roots take well. But because this is such a heavy vining plant, you are going to find a need to trellis this plant or to put stakes in it or something like that. I use this really nifty green Velcro to attach it. You can also use, I've seen people use zip ties before and other things like that. Bamboo stakes work really well, but this is just like a cool little trellis piece that I got from Lowe's here. Propagating the Monstera is pretty easy as well. You can water propagate the Monstera or soil propagate it, just like you would with any vining plant. You could watch like my Devil's Ivy or Golden Pothos propagation video or Brazil Philodendron propagation video. Very similar concept to that. You're just going to cut along the node and take that cutting, put it into soil or water, and then that aerial root will grow and you'll get some more root growth as well. And you can just put that into soil then and propagate it like that. Very straightforward, very easy plant to propagate as well. So I think I about covered all you need to know about the Monstera. There's a lot of ground to cover because it's a very unique plant and one that I actually really love. I think it's an awesome plant, super great for filling out spaces, such an interesting look too. You know, it's just so crazy to think like this thing from Mexico is growing in my house. It's kind of funny. But yeah, let me know if you guys have any questions about the Monstera. I think I pretty much covered it. Just a quick recap. Keep your soil relatively moist, not wet. Don't let it dry out too much. You'll see signs of dehydration around the leaves curling in on themselves. You want to have bright and direct light. Barely any bright direct light, as you might scorch the foliage. Aerial root care, you can chop them off or just let them run down, put them in soil, doesn't really matter. Yeah, and just fertilize through the growing season with an all-purpose and you should be fine. Yeah guys, let me know if you have any questions and I will see you in the next video. Bye.